Welcome to episode 5, Whinos. Today, we have a special guest on the show with us, Kyler Banks from BambooHR. Hello, Kyler.
Hello. Happy to be here.
We are so excited to have you. Now, for everyone out there in wine land, do not worry. This is not going to be a sales pitchy type episode, but you do need to know that Monarch, we are so proud to partner with BambooHR, and we will tell you more about that later. But the reason we asked Kyler to join us today is because BambooHR has some awesome tips on how you can make sure your hiring process is actually delivering you the best candidates. We all know it is such a difficult market out there, and they have some just fantastic ideas. But you know the drill. Before we get started, we have to discuss the whine, W-I-N-E, of the day. And hey, Jules, before I ask you what you're drinking, I need to show everybody who's watching my bottle, and then while y'all are talking, I'm gonna open it because I just think this is super fun. Check this out. Isn't that so pretty?
That is so cool. Very cool bottle. I can't wait to see what it tastes like.
I'm excited to watch you try to open it.
Well, I will be opening it, so hopefully it shows all three of us while I'm doing it. We shall see. All right. So what you drinking, Jules?
Well, today I am drinking Protea, which I love that they put how to pronounce it on the back of the bottle because I hate it when you can't figure out how to say the wine that you are drinking. So this is Protea, and it is from South Africa. It's a rosé. If you are watching us on video, you probably guessed that already. But for those of you who are just listening to us, it is a rosé. Protea is the national flower of South Africa, and it is cherished for its beauty and diversity. One cool thing about this bottle is it can be upcycled and reused in as many ways as your imagination allows. And their labels are printed on 100% recycled material, symbolizing their environmentally friendly brand ethos. So very cool. It's a very pretty bottle. It's got like a lot of sort of floral, almost like fleur-de-lis shape-ish things. So very pretty. It is a very pretty bottle. It has a twist cork, which was very interesting to me. I will say that they wrapped that twist cork in plastic and baby-proofed or adult-proofed the crap out of it because I had a real hard time getting through it. But once I was able to just get to the actual cork, it was very easy to twist out, which is pretty cool. So let me see. So far, it's okay. It's not my favorite rosé I've ever had. It says it's dry. I don't know that I agree with that.
All right.
But I'm willing to give it another 44 minutes and see what I think in 44 minutes. So we'll come back.
I'm setting a timer.
Okay, so now I want to formally introduce Kyler Banks. He is an account specialist with BambooHR, and he has quickly become a good friend of ours and the show. And later on, when we tell you guys how you can take advantage of BambooHR, if you decide you want to give them a test, he's the guy that you would work with. So we're very excited to have him here today. So Kyler, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and also about what you are drinking?
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me. And yeah, I will be the one you guys work with for better or for worse. Hopefully it's a good impression after today. But I've been at BambooHR for about 3 years. I'm on the partner team, so I work almost exclusively with consultants and their clients. Or based out of Utah. I personally live in Salt Lake, but originally I'm from Portland, Oregon. So I basically chase anywhere that is pretty outside to look at. And then for my drink, I feel a little bit like the ugly duckling. I did not get a rosé or red wine. I have white, so hopefully that's not going to get me laughed off the podcast. But I have a sea swept by Josh Sellers. So it's a mix of Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Grigio. So a nice kind of crisp tart with a little bit of kind of a subtle undertone. So I really like it. My girlfriend's also big on white wine, which means we don't drink red wine. So I've become very accustomed to the white wine world.
You will never, ever, ever get kicked off for drinking Josh. Josh is my favorite. Everybody will tell you
Perfect.
that. Any Josh wine to me is a great wine. So I can totally appreciate that. And honestly, it's really weird that Julie and I both picked a rosé. I mean, really, really weird.
Yeah, because I've been drinking white, I think, every episode so far. And I was like, I got to switch it up today.
I was going to say, a part of me wanted to bring a boxed wine just as a joke and just kind of see what the reaction was going to be initially, and then switch to what I really had, but unfortunately didn't have time.
Julie, tell Kyler what you were drinking last episode.
Well, it wasn't last
episode or the one before?
I think it was a couple episodes ago, but there is a boxed wine that I really like. Your girlfriend may like it. It's called Grazzi, Gratsi, and it is from Italy, and it is a higher level boxed wine. But it's just a really nice white blend, very much like what you just described Josh to be. But they also have a rosé and they also have a red. I've tried the rosé, again, didn't love it. Really love the white. The red I have not tried yet. So, but it is, as far as boxed wines go, it's good. It is an expensive boxed wine, but you get what you pay for. So,
Grazzi, got it.
Okay, Trish, take it away.
Well, I'm kind of jealous because my bottle doesn't have a how to pronounce it on it. And as much as I try to work on my French, this one is beyond me. What I can tell you is it's OEIL, de Perdrix. So I'm going to say maybe Ol or Al, but probably Ol. And what that means is, I gotta pull it away so I can actually read it. It's French for eye of the partridge, and that is a traditional term for this wine's seductive color. And it says that to capture the shade along with the wine's crisp acidity and whole berry flavors, we lightly press Pinot Noir with whole clusters, then allow the wine a brief affair. I love this. A brief affair with French oak barrels during and after fermentation. The acidity, the crispness, it totally is getting me on the sides of the tongue. It's something that I'm not used to have this much acid from a rosé. So I'm not sure, but I think I like it. It's really, really interesting though. And again, I don't know how many minutes I have to check my timer, but by the end, I will let you know. But I'm pretty stoked about it. Again, the bottle is gorgeous. And yeah, so far, decent impression. I'm just not sure if it's my palate, if that makes sense, or the wine. So, now that we've WINE'd at you, we're going to start our WHINE of the episode. Boy, only 2 sips in and we're already having trouble talking. Oh, dear. Kyler, are you sure you're up for this with the 2 of us?
I'm buckled in. I'm ready to go. So I'm ready for this journey.
Excellent. So we've talked about talent acquisition a lot on other episodes, and you all know that it is one of my absolute favorites. But we've only talked about it in pieces and parts. We've never actually devoted a whole episode to it. So as you can imagine, I am so geeked for this episode. In this episode in particular, though, we're going to focus on your hiring strategy and really how to make it more effective for you. There is an amazing article, and of course, as always, we're going to have a link to it in our show notes from BambooHR. Thank you, Kyler and team. And it really does have these amazing 5 steps that are super important. So, Kyler, I'm going to flip it over to you and have you tell us what those 5 steps are, and then we can discuss each one of them in turn.
Sure thing. So, like you said, it's about 5 steps that are kind of the key. So, the first is just going to be kind of the alignment between the HR team and the hiring managers, kind of developing that consistency, that level of repeatability. Next is going to be developing KPIs, things to kind of guide decision making, guide reviews and analytics around the hiring process. Make sure you're getting good candidates and future proofing how you're going to do that moving forward, as well as using AI to streamline processes, which is kind of a double-edged sword, but a really cool tool now. And then another big piece is going to be creating that candidate experience, making sure they have a positive experience, enjoy going through the process as much as one can when it comes to hiring. And then finally, kind of writing those job descriptions to make sure you're attracting the right talent and not getting, casting too big of a net.
Yeah, these are all really critical because there is often a disconnect between what the hiring process looks like on paper at a lot of employers and what they actually do in real life. And I think that there's in particular with some of these steps, places where it's really easy for employers to fall short without maybe even realizing that they're doing that. So the first step really resonates with me because this is probably where I see the biggest disconnect is between the HR team and the hiring managers or whoever is doing the interviews. I have definitely seen many situations where there is a lack of alignment between what HR thinks is a good hire and what the managers think is a good hire. And I think that that can then create a lot of problems. And I want to share a quick story. So I'm going to give a shout out to Steve Sova, who I just recently had lunch with, but he's a recruiter for uh, financial individuals, so like tax professionals and controllers and CFOs and things like that. But he had recently posted something on LinkedIn saying that, he was working with a client who said, well, I just wasn't wowed by that candidate during the interview. And he responded to him and sort of pushed back and said, well, did you need to be wowed? Because this is like your numbers guy, like I'm paraphrasing here, but like, do you really want the wow factor in your accountant or your CFO, or do you want somebody who pays attention to detail and like has their, nose to the grind and all of that? And I thought, wow, that is so interesting. But that is, I feel like what a lot of people who are not in HR. So just like your managers who are involved in the hiring process, they want to be wowed. They want that wow factor. They want to be knocked off their socks and they don't really think about what makes a good hire for whatever the particular position is. So, Tyler, what's been your experience with this first one and this often disconnect between HR managers or HR professionals and the managers who are doing the hiring?
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think this is one of the most common things, and that's part of the reason I love kind of working in the HR space is I am a gossip queen. I love it too much, and so oftentimes when I work with consultants, HR directors, and there's a big disconnect, and they usually have some things to say about the other party. But that is besides the point. I think some of the key things are just kind of having a consistent structure to it. I think one big thing you'll see is, if you have a bunch of different people doing the hiring, they may not follow the same process. So there may be steps that get skipped or added steps that make it more complicated. So it kind of helps or clouds up the ability to have consistency over that. Um, so one of the big things is just kind of having a consistent schedule to meet between the HR team and the hiring manager. They're on the same page. One of the favorite ways that I've seen people do it is kind of working backwards, where either it's somebody in the role that does it really well, or just kind of dreaming up your ideal person for this role. And I could use an office manager, for example, saying, "Hey, we want somebody that has experience with a multi-practice office and all these other factors." And then kind of laying them out and then working backwards to say, okay, what, of the 10 things that we need, here are the most important, and then kind of working backwards into that, building out the job description, what steps you want to vet each of those specific things, and then kind of having feedback along the way, which is or having some type of platform, whether it's an HRIS, even an Excel sheet, just something where you guys can have feedback, put notes to each other is important. And we're all human. Nobody remembers everything that was said. So make sure it's a place where you can come back and reference those notes and feedback. So if you want to remember what you guys talked about and kind of the initial feeling, you can go back to that information and kind of have it all shared in front of you. So really just kind of transparency, a consistent process that you continue to follow, And that's going to help with making it repeatable, having analytics, just making sure that everybody's on the same page and you're not having that butting of heads between HR and the hiring team.
I think one of my absolute favorite things that you just said was the fact that what is good for one candidate may not be great for other candidates. I think that that is really one of the places where we see the biggest disconnect in this area is that people forget like your good hire for your CEO is not the same as a good hire for your IT person, which is different, of course, from your receptionist. And really getting down to what is important to you in this role, Mr. or Ms. Manager? Like, what do you think is going to make a person most successful? I feel like when I have asked that question of managers, they really can finally put into words what it is they're looking for so that once I go back to look at the different resumes I've had or the tools that we've used, Julie mentioned AI earlier, you mentioned AI earlier, that we can get the appropriate words into our toolbox. So I thank you for saying that. That just makes me so happy. Should I drop some stats on this, by the way, y'all?
You know it.
Yes. All right. 86% of HR managers are solely responsible for recruitment. That blows me away. And then, but it makes sense though, when you go to what Kyler was just saying, then you have someone on the other end going, well, I don't know why I have this candidate. Why is this person? And it's because that they haven't collaborated and really shared what they want. So that number blew me away. And again, of course, I'm looking to the side because I can't memorize all these stats as much as we always joke about me being the stat girl. What was the other one in this one? You already said the 36%. Can I repeat that one? Can I just repeat that one for everybody out there? Why don't you have a formal hiring process? Why aren't you consistent? Without that consistency, you could end up finding yourselves in trouble. Someone could think that you did or made a choice based on a protected characteristic. So I really had to go back to that one again. I think that one is huge. I don't think I want to go into any more stats right now. I want to save them for our next
Well, actually,
discussion.
Trish, can I interrupt with one though that's related to this step?
Yeah, I think you're going to go to right where I was just about to go. I betcha.
Oh, well, so another one is that 46% of HR professionals would reject a candidate for lacking core soft skills like having emotional intelligence or being able to have difficult conversations or being able to manage well. And hiring managers often view those skills very differently and as not as important. And that is one of those great examples of that disconnect because I see this all the time. Like, we will in HR see red flag after red flag with a candidate, and oftentimes it has to do with those soft skills. They either don't communicate, they don't show up on time, they don't express themselves clearly, they don't, like there's all these red flags, and we're sitting here going, do not hire this person. And they're like, oh, but their experience is great. And then 6 months later, they're like, yeah, this isn't working out. Really, really.
Shocker.
I'm so surprised, like this is nuts. I can't believe it didn't work out.
I knew you were going to that one. I knew it. And I was going to bring it in under the KPI discussion because I
Well,
think it fits in both places.
yes. Well, I was just giving you a lead in, so go forth.
Before I get into the discussion on KPIs, Kyler, I have to ask you, why is it that Bamboo decided to put something out there about KPIs and specifically these? What did you all think was so important?
Well, I think it stems from the fact that KPIs are pretty overlooked. I mean, before I was in the HR space, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Like, okay, we hired somebody good. So what? That's where the road ends. But there's so many factors that go into kind of what matters. And I think it's kind of twofold. It can help kind of get rid of inefficiencies in the process. A lot of times people get stuck in different steps and don't realize it. And as well, too, a lot of things like one of my favorites that we'll get into is things like offer letter acceptance. I don't think that's tracked by a ton of people, but it's something where if you find all this top talent and you get them all the way to the final step, basically you're like, hey, you're the one we want, and they keep rejecting it. It's like, well, do they not like me? Do they not like my face? Do they not like the salary listed? So there's all these little factors that go into it, but it's a really simple thing that you can look at and evaluate and then change and say, oh, wow, this is something we need to change. We're well below the market standard, or they don't like this policy. So there's small things within each KPI that you can use to kind of streamline it, but I would say don't get too deep in them. Pick, 3, 4, 5 that really matter to you guys, and then focus in on those, and they will help guide kind of the structure and analytics of your hiring process.
I have to interrupt for a second because Tyler unwittingly just said the title of this episode. And all that was going through my head was, "You're the one that I want. You are the one I want. Ooh, 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 honey, the one that I want." So I have a habit of turning all our titles into songs, and that's what was going through my head. And then you just teed it up there, like. So I had to jump in. Sorry. Well
No,
done.
it was perfect.
Okay.
Well, I was going to go straight to the stat that they presented in the article because I think that it goes right along with what Kyler was saying. 42% of candidates decline offers due to work-life balance issues. 41% due to lack of growth opportunities, and 40%, oh, well, you're too slow. They've accepted another offer. And this will go into something else that we're going to talk about in a little while, talking about the candidate experience and the things that you can do to really keep them engaged throughout. But before we get there, we do want to focus just a little longer on some of these others. And I'm going to drop a couple of stats, and then I will turn it over to y'all to kind of muddle through them and give us your thoughts. Something that I was actually surprised by, 30% of companies fill roles in 1 week or less, while 27% take 2 weeks. That to me, I'm surprised that it's that high even. So I'd really love to get your thoughts on that. Is it because they have looked at BambooHR's information and they have made their process streamlined? Like, how is it that that number is that high? I'm really shocked by that. 40% of companies report 11 to 25% turnover among new hires. That goes back to what Julie was saying earlier, and Kyler both. You fill a role just to fill it. You're not paying attention to some of those really crucial soft skills, and also maybe even like the motivational reason behind why someone is looking for a new job. And when you have candidates that are like, no, the whole reason I'm leaving the current job is because they don't offer advancement. They use a lot of paper. They kill a lot of trees. And I really want to work with technology, right? Or I don't have a lot of ability to just go out and work on my own. Someone's already micromanaging me. So making sure that if you see a candidate that is good, I know I'm jumping back to our last thing, but that's what I do. uh, if you see a candidate that who basically lines with your skills, maybe find out, yes, okay, they're a functional fit, or maybe they're not as much of a functional fit as someone else. What is their motivation for leaving? Because I think this number is pretty high, 40%. 11 to 25% turnover. We don't want that. That gets very, very expensive. I'm also going to go to one more stat that I find amazing. 58% of hires in the past 6 months were very qualified. So everyone out there that's saying there aren't candidates out there, well, then maybe we need to do better at refining our process. Now, I know it's a tough market. I'm not saying it isn't, but that doesn't mean that we can't step up our process. So that's why we're talking about this today. And my last one, 74% of companies use online job boards for recruitment. This I am not surprised by it. I've always said it's our number one tool, and probably then social media is, I think is number two. Kyler, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think especially like with LinkedIn and things like that, they're wonderful tools. So now that I've thrown those stats out there, what do you guys think about these, and how do you think that our listeners can either be one of these good stats or avoid being one of the bad ones?
I want to start kind of at the end, and that will lead back to the beginning. Uh, Obviously, turnover is something that you can't, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen regardless. But I think one small thing is to make sure you do exit interviews. It's important to understand why people are leaving, what things you may look to improve. So whether you have high turnover or low turnover, just understanding the metrics behind why people are leaving can help you change policies, change culture, just make sure it's a really fun environment. But the whole situation around hiring is very unique, very interesting in kind of the way that it works. Um, a lot of those stats are kind of shocking to me. And I think boards are great. They can be a great tool, but I think there's an over reliance on them. And I think one of the other issues is when you post to LinkedIn or Indeed, you're competing with so many other jobs. So you have to make the job look flashy, exciting, all this stuff. And so the job might look a little bit cooler and more exciting on Indeed versus when you show up boots on the ground for the first day. It's a little bit different. So I know we'll talk about kind of job descriptions towards the end, but that's a big thing to consider. And then kind of the quick hiring is kind of an epidemic, so to speak. There's kind of two things that people consider the same, and it's acquisition and recruitment. Recruitment is more kind of that short term, hey, we need, an office manager really quickly. Acquisition tends to be more of that, hey, we have a CEO or a CFO that we need to hire for. But because people are so, set on hiring and filling that as quickly as possible, a lot of times they'll overlook, key components of the fit because they need somebody in that role, which is also going to increase and lead to more of that turnover. So I think having a more intentional approach, it might be a little bit more difficult for an extra week not having that position filled, but it's going to be a lot easier to spend an extra week or two recruiting than it is to hire an entire new person after 6 months. So I would say just take a really intentional approach to how you go about recruitment, who you're bringing in, making sure they do align with the things that you guys want and the various, elements of what a fit are for you guys. And then obviously with the time to hire and other things, there's a lot of other cool things. But Julie, I'll kind of let you step in for a second here.
Yeah, I agree. What I've been thinking about as I've been listening is a couple things. One, Trisha and I have said this multiple times before, but most companies are quick to hire, slow to fire, and it should be the opposite. You should be slow to hire, quick to fire. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row and check with your legal counsel before you fire somebody. But, oftentimes companies are too nice towards the end and let things go on and on and on. And they, probably should have parted ways much earlier. And a lot of times when they're hiring, there is sort of this pressure to get somebody in there and put a quick band-aid on it. But so the other thing I was thinking is if people could just slow that whole process down and spend more time up front, which yes, we know that's painful, but you only have to do it technically once for each position, right? So if you really like what you were talking about, Kyler, at the beginning, let's say that you have a project manager position and you have not had great success with people, maybe there's a lot of turnover in that position. To go back to the basics and say, okay, who have been our successful project managers? Okay, what skills do they all have in common? What experience do they all have in common? Like build that candidate profile, that, optimal candidate profile. Spend the time doing that before you even post the job, because you might need to add some things to that job description that incorporate all of those skills that you just identified. And then you have that going into the interview. So you have a better idea of what you're looking for instead of just this wow factor, that because anybody can interview well, but, that can change pretty dang quick when somebody actually gets a job. So, um, so those were the two things that kept going through my mind. And then the other one was one of the stats about candidate pipeline strength, which was 35% of companies say the biggest challenge to finding qualified candidates is that applicants have a relevant experience or lack industry certifications. And to me, that's an interesting one because one of the things Trisha and I talk about, especially in a challenging job market, is you don't want to pigeonhole yourself into looking for a specific education level, a specific experience, or even like those industry certifications. Most of the time, people can obtain those. You can teach somebody what they need to do to get an industry certification. But if you can look for those transferable skills, and I know we're going to talk about AI, and we've already mentioned the job boards and some of that applicant screening technology, but that's where I think stuff gets lost because you can have somebody whose resume would not make it through that, but who have really great transferable skills that would easily be able to be applied in this other position. So while KPIs are great, and I think that Trish and I talk about this all the time too. In HR, there's not a lot of stuff you can track. So if you can track something, track it. Data is great. We love it. But you also kind of got to take that step back, forest for the trees approach to say, okay, let's use these KPIs, but let's also figure out to make sure that we're getting those qualified candidates. And maybe some of these other KPIs are preventing us from doing that. So maybe we need to focus on different ones. So it's going to be different for every company, every HR department, but that's the beauty of it. You can kind of design it as to what works for your particular company.
One
It's an
small
ongoing process, right?
Always. One small thing I'll add is you were talking about candidate pipeline strength. And one misconception that I see is people think that they can't post jobs and look for people when they're not actively hiring, which I think is something that we need to kind of change the thought process around. Obviously, you don't want to go and start posting a bunch of stuff and getting people excited, but I think there is a lot of value in saying, hey, we may have a role or just gauging interest for it. So you may not hire them now, but you can create a talent pool and kind of a general stable of people that you could come to later because you never know who's going to be looking for a job at a given time. You never know who's going to be on their way out of a position. So, that way, if you have people in your pipeline that you've contacted, engaged with before, they've seen or shown interest, you know, if you do lose somebody very quick or abruptly, instead of trying to scramble to find somebody, you can reach out to the 5, 6 people that you've engaged with in the last 6 months and say, hey, are any of you guys looking for a position? We have this role open. And so that way you kind of have a jump start on getting qualified people and you're not scrambling, trying to put a band-aid on a sinking ship and duct tape the holes before it sinks. So that's something I think that people should keep in mind is you can recruit even when you don't have those open positions right now.
Julie and I talk about that a lot too, Kyler, especially with people that are already working for you. Build up those skills, talk to them about where they want to be with your organization, maybe next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and really see what their skills are, where they have shined. And then you can even move them into those roles and then hire for those more trainable roles. And again, then those people, as you bring in that pipeline, you can grow them as well. So there's so many different approaches to this. All right. Should we move on to something else, Jules?
Let's do it.
All right. What are you thinking?
Well, I wanted to talk about just to make sure we have enough time to cover the fourth and fifth steps because we have talked about AI a lot in other episodes, and we have given people the caution that it's been shown. Trisha had the stats. I forget exactly what they were, but um, AI is biased because it was created by humans. So there's a lot of bias there that you've got to counteract. So if we have time, we'll come back to that because there are some really useful ways to use AI, but you just always have to balance it with the human element to make sure that you're not falling into one of those traps where it's kind of going rogue and maybe not giving you all of the candidates that it should be. So we'll come back to that. But I want to start talking about the candidate experience because I think that leads nicely from what Kyler was just talking about. Because if you treat your candidates right, even if you don't hire them, they become your pipeline. Because either they are there if a new position opens that you're like, oh my God, that person we interviewed 4 months ago would be great for this, and you can reach out to them, or if they had a great experience with you, they're going to talk about that to other people. And then they're going to say, you know what, I didn't get hired, but my experience as a candidate was great. You know, they gave me feedback. They communicated well and promptly. I knew what every step of the process looked like, you know, like whatever those things might be. And that can be really important because every recruiting opportunity is also and I think it says this in the article, is a branding opportunity, right? Because you're always marketing. And the best marketing is testimonials, right? So if we can get that part right, if we can get the candidate part right, that's really important. And I'm sure we have all been the victim of a horrible process where there's no follow up. We have no idea what's going on. We don't know if they hired somebody. You're in that weird, awkward thing where you're trying to send an email like, just checking in. Has there been any decision yet? I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to work with you. Signed, please hire me. You know, like, and it's miserable because then you're just like waiting for a response that never comes. So, Tyler, what are your thoughts on the creating a good candidate experience?
I love this topic. I also coach college athletics, so recruitment is a big part. Creating a favorable experience is, like you mentioned, it's part of your brand. Even if you don't hire somebody, people talk. That's what we do. So you want to make sure it's a good experience. And I think one of the first steps to that is personalization. I always joke that I'm personally victimized by this. I have a more unique name. So the amount of times I've gone through the hiring process and they say, hey Kyle, hi Kyle, it immediately, I'm like, you couldn't have even taken the 2 seconds to make sure there's an R on the end of that. So it drives me nuts. Just simple things, personalizing the emails, making them feel valued. I can't remember who said it, but there's a saying basically, everybody has a big sign on their forehead that says, make me feel important. And so that's something that you really want to do in the middle of the hiring process is make them feel valued, even if you're not going to proceed with them. And so the first step of that is personalization. And the next step is just communication, clearly outlining what the steps are, kind of what they can expect, what they know how to go through it. And then as well, if you don't hire somebody, giving feedback is really important. Not just saying, hey, sorry, you're not a good fit or kick you to the curb, try again later, but being like, hey, you know what, we really need somebody that meets this specific criteria. Unfortunately, that is not what your experience communicates to us, so we've decided not to proceed, but we would love to keep in contact with you. Because A, not only is it going to make them feel better about it, B, they're going to talk favorably about the company, and C, the biggest part is they could come back. I mean, the amount of people I work with at BambooHR that applied, got rejected, and then came back a year later because they had that relevant experience is tenfold. And a lot of them are phenomenal employees, great coworkers, great colleagues, and they wouldn't have gone through it if Bamboo didn't have a favorable experience. And one thing I want to say too is don't be afraid to change things. When I first started and interviewed at Bamboo, one piece of the hiring process drove me nuts and I hated it. Basically, what we did or what they used to do is your very first interview, you wouldn't talk to somebody. You would go to this website and it would basically show you a question. It would show you the question for about 30 seconds, and then you would have 2 minutes timed to respond. So basically, as if a recruiter was asking you a question, and then you would respond, but you were just talking to a wall. I hated it. I went through every question, talking about my background, like why I want to work, and I was like, this feels awful. Like not looking at someone and seeing their response and going through it. And so I was definitely someone that was vocal. I was like, guys, can we not do this? This sucks. And so through other feedback, they changed it, and it's a much more favorable hiring process that people enjoy going through. And then I would say the last thing to this is the candidate experience doesn't stop when you send them the offer letter. I think the onboarding experience is a really big part of that. I've seen people who have signed offer letters and then been onboarded in a really terrible way or not enjoyed it and then left. That's one of the things that we do that's really fun here is we have like a get to know you section. The reason I bring it up is when I showed up on my first day a few years ago, not only did I have a little like Cinnamon Toast Crunch box on my desk because that was my favorite cereal, so it made me feel special. But they sent out my questions to everybody that I answered, so everyone knew like my embarrassing middle school fashion trends, me wearing shutter shades when I was in middle school, and all this stuff, which was horribly embarrassing, but really fun to look at everybody else's. And so I think it's an important part to make sure that tailored experience doesn't end just when you send them the offer letter. It carries into that initial stage because it's a vulnerable place to be, newly onboarded for the first week or two. So doing everything you can to make them feel welcome, special, personalized, and just having a good experience is going to make them speak volumes and bring other people, be promoters of the company, so to speak.
Talk about creating connections, right, Jules? Holy smokes, we're always talking about ways to create connection, and I am obsessed with that.
Well, I was thinking about our episode on asking questions to learn more
Yep,
about the person as a human versus just as
right.
whatever role they are working in. And that's great. I love it. You just gave me some ideas, which we're going to
Hmm.
have to ask you a couple questions at the end now. So
Good one.
we're going to,
Yes,
we're going to
yes.
have to do that.
And I do want people to out there to listen very closely to what we are saying here, because if you've ever gone on Glassdoor, I'm like the Home Alone face. Right? It is awful what people have experienced. If you want to know what not to do, go on Glassdoor and read some of the experiences that these candidates have are talking about. Kyler is dead on when he says that the experience can make or break what you do during that hiring process, how you respond, the kind of interactions that you have can really set the tone and tenure for not just the hiring process itself, but for their whole what am I trying to say? Lifetime with you, their whole work life with you, and so I think that that's a pretty amazing thing to remember. It's okay to change your process. That's what we're talking about here, right? It's okay to change your process. It just because you think you have it nailed doesn't mean that it might be perfect. Remember to look and listen and grow with the times, which we're going to talk about potentially here in a little bit as well.
Yeah, and I would also say, one of the things to always think about is put yourself in the candidate's shoe. Like, how would you want to be treated? And one of the things that I will say that I think a lot of employers have a tendency to do because they are in a bind to find somebody or, they desperately want to fill this position is to be not entirely honest about what the position entails or what it looks like. Like, for example, I was recently helping a client with some interviews. And so I was doing the interviews, and it was for a position where there is no upward mobility. Like, there just isn't. It's one of those positions that there's nowhere to go. There's no advancement opportunities. And that question was asked by a few people, like what are the opportunities? And it was like, well, in this position in particular, in this department, I'm going to be honest with you, there aren't any. There's nowhere to go. Now, does that mean that we won't offer you professional development? No, we will offer you whatever professional development, that we think is reasonable and related to the job, and we're happy to do that. And you may be able to move to other positions within the company, because we have people do that. But I think it's really important to be honest, because if you tell somebody, oh, yeah, 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 like we advance people all the time, and then they get in there and realize, like, oh wait, this department doesn't has one manager. That person's been here for 25 years, is in no danger of going anywhere, like I'm going to be in this position. Then they're going to feel like you pulled a fast one on them, which is not going to make them want to stay with you, so I think we also have to be not just clear, but honest about what a position really entails. The other one I see a lot of companies do is travel. Like, they'll sort of downplay the amount of travel that a position requires. And then the person gets in there and they're like, what do you mean it's 50% of my time, and you're sending me 400 miles away? Or, it's like, no way. Like, so you've got to, if you truly want to find the right candidate, it's better for you to be upfront about those sorts of things, because then people are going to self-select themselves out. But also, it might take longer, but eventually you'll find a person who's willing to actually work under those conditions.
Um, and one of the other things I think that goes to that, Jules, is one of the things that they say in the article is about keeping applicants informed at every stage. This one is a big one for me. Uh, yes, I want you to just in general communicate, but if someone's no longer a part of the process, don't keep them on the line. This isn't fishing, right? We're not going or whatever. We're not looking for an alternate candidate here. Like, let them go. Let them move forward. It's hard and it'll hurt them, but they'll respect you for it later. And if they are continuing on in the process, then engage with them. This is one of the benefits of AI, because I'm gonna just pull this in here, even though we may not get a chance to talk about it much. But like, AI is amazing for doing that, sending little updates, giving some information, maybe sending something about the company in general, maybe even sending a joke, just something where you're regularly communicating.
That's a great idea. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. The other thing, and I hate to be this person, but my legal brain is like shrieking a little bit about giving candidates feedback. And I do agree that if you do have something specific and constructive, that is great. But you also need to be careful. And please, for the love of God, do not let those just managers who have no HR training be the ones to give that feedback, because they're bound to say something that's only going to get you into hot water. So um, we want to make sure that the feedback we're giving is, if it's related to skills or experience or things like that. But I would not want somebody going, it just wasn't a good fit, because we've all talked about how much we hate the words good fit, and what a red
Uh-huh.
flag that is. So you do need to be a little bit cautious there. So again, my little legal brain, lawyer brain's coming out on that one. But I do recognize that it can mean a lot to a candidate, because one of the worst things is thinking that somehow you weren't good enough for that job. And so, for all the people who are out there looking for jobs who are feeling that way, I would encourage you to, you know, think about the fact that if you're listening to us, there are a million reasons why you might not have been selected for a job. And rarely does it have to do with you in particular. Like, it's not you that isn't enough. It's just, for whatever reason, for this particular job, the employer didn't think you were the best candidate. Somebody else might have thought you were the best candidate. But I think that that feedback can be so important to the candidates, but you also just have to be a little bit careful about how it's phrased and how it's delivered.
I have to jump in because of course I'm always thinking about retention. And for those of you who are thinking, well, oh, does that mean I can't share anything with my current employees if they were a candidate for the position? No, that is not what Julie is saying. Go ahead, give them that feedback. If you are serious about wanting to grow your internal candidate pool, then really talk to them. But as Julie said, focus on the skills, focus on the things that you can help them learn. Here are the skills that we're lacking. This is something that is obviously trainable. And we would like to be able to, if you can say, we'd like to, we'd give you this training. You have $2,000 worth of money every single year to use for professional development. Here's where we think you should use it. Just so that you have that kind of in mind. Again, be cautious, tie it to skills, but really, especially for those who currently work for you, you don't want them to quit because you're too afraid to tell them.
I feel like this leads really well into like job descriptions, kind of what to do and how to attract them. Um,
Perfect. I'll let you go.
Perfect. As you guys were talking about it, I always make the comparison that recruiting is like dating, and your job description is basically like a dating app bio, where you can say, I like long walks on the beach, I love fitness, I love cooking. But the more time that you spend together, the more you're going to realize where you were lying. So it's much better to be honest and upfront at the beginning versus being like, oh, well, we've DoorDashed for the fourth time this week, and all we've done is stay at home and watch movies. I haven't gone to the beach once. So it's the little things. But joking aside, what I mean is, I always say do it nice or do it twice. When you go about writing job descriptions, you want to make sure that it's something that's tailored, that's specific. Obviously, there's a little bit that's going to be kind of fluff to make yourself look good. That's just the nature of the business. But when it comes down to brass tacks, you want to have things that are specific, that are true about the job. Because ultimately, if you lie about things and make them seem more grandiose and bigger than they are, that facade only lasts so long. And the other part of it is so many people try to cast this giant net, getting as many people as they can, thinking, well, if I can get so like X amount of candidates, then the perfect one's going to be in there somewhere. Where most often it's a lot better to be very specific, very tailored, and you may only get 30% of what you get with that wide net, but that 30% is going to be a lot more specific to what you guys need. They're going to be, the exact fit that you need, and you're not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole when it comes to making that person work. It's going to be more specific. And so with that, when you write your job description, you want it to be really specific, really tailored to what the roles are. And you want to be honest about things like promotion ability, how quickly you can move up the ranks, and if there is a position you can go into. And then when you create your job ad where you post it to different places, that's where you're going to pick, the key main parts and say, hey, here are kind of the cool perks. Here are what we need. And then when someone dives in deeper, then they're going to see the specific roles, the competencies, the certifications, all like the nitty gritty stuff that they need. So I would say just take a second to go through it. And that's not to say people are like, I can't copy and paste. That's okay. Take something, but don't just paste it there. Copy a job description that you like and then tweak it. Say, okay, how can I put our spin? What matters to us? What are our values? Incorporate those things in it. But the joke I always make is treat it like dating. They'll find out eventually if you're lying. So it's way better to be upfront and honest. So that way you do it nice instead of doing it twice.
Are
I
you going to
love
steal
that.
that, Julie?
Yeah, I love that. I
Totally.
love that. I love it. I also think that it's it's just so true. Um, and one of the things that I think from a job description standpoint, again, going back to my comment about honesty, I think that a lot of times job descriptions are slapped together because they got to get posted, and oftentimes it's not a true reflection of what that job is actually going to look like. So on the flip side of the candidate who makes themselves look like Superman or Superwoman, you have an employer who is making a job look like what it is not, which eventually the candidate is going to figure out you're lying, right? So we've got that on the flip side. And Trisha, I think you shared it in a prior episode, maybe our very first one, where we were talking about some of the trends and some of the things that was going on. But I know there's a stat, and I know I believe it's over 50%, but there are a lot of candidates who will not even apply for a job if the salary or compensation is not listed on the posting. And
One of my biggest pet peeves. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
do you remember
I
what the number is?
I don't, but I need to look it up because yes, that is one of my biggest pet peeves.
I think
I
it's like
actually
40%.
It's
I think
high.
yeah,
And it's
it's
the younger
really
you
high.
go, the higher it gets too.
Yes, yes, yes,
Bingo. Bingo,
yes. And
Kyler.
and it doesn't make sense to bury the lead, so to speak, as an employer because you're going to screen for that immediately, right? Like all the HR people I know screen for compensation because they want to find out if this person's like, they might not tell them what their salary range is, but they'll ask them what's your desired salary. So you're going to ask the question anyway. Like, why do you even want to waste this person's time if they're $20,000 over what you're willing to pay? Like it doesn't make a lot of sense, but we never used to do it. So it's another one of those. Are we doing this because it's the way we've always done it or because it's the best way? And usually the answer is it's because it's the way we've always done it. But that is not what candidates want anymore. So you also have to write your job descriptions with that in mind. What are the candidates looking for when they're reading job descriptions that are going to make those qualified candidates that you really want actually apply for your job posting versus, just hoping and praying that they, you know, come along. So, okay, Trisha, I'll put it back to you now. But that's my 2 cents.
You knew that I was going to drop some stats, but I think Kyler wants to say something, and then I'm going to drop some stats from the article.
I have one more thing to add about like the salary. A is one, I think employers are like, well, if I can just get them in the door, I can convince them that we're great and they'll go for lower pay. I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but that's just usually not the case. But the other thing too is platforms like Glassdoor and I can't remember what the other one is called off the top of my head, but people will go and list what the salary is for positions at that job. So even if you don't list it, people will still go find the information. So it honestly just makes you get painted in a worse light for not sharing it because that information is likely out there somewhere. So I always say just put it there. It's going to weed out people that you don't want, and it's going to make it more efficient for your time. And it's going to make you look better because more often than not, the information for how much people get paid at your company is probably out on the web somewhere.
It's 100% true. And I was actually just helping someone who was looking for like just more of a part-time work from home gig. And one of the things that I was working with her on was the whole idea of, well, what does this pay? And the jobs that she was looking for, only half of them actually put the salary in there. And so she was like, well, okay, but these aren't even in my same state. I don't know if I ask for this much, is that going to be too much? Am I going to rule myself out? So you have candidates that won't even apply for your job because they think what they're asking for might be too high. So then now you're reducing your maybe by half, maybe by a quarter, even if it was by only one person. What if that one person was the right candidate? So y'all, look, transparency, whoo, it became the big words a few years ago. I don't understand why. We should have always been transparent. But put it out there. I guarantee you that the people that apply are going to then be really interested in the job. And so let's drop some stats. Because I think it's perfect timing. Candidates are prioritizing work-life balance and benefits. Well, shocker there, right? 42% of candidates will decline offers due to lack of benefits. As a matter of fact, if you are a company that doesn't pay maybe as much as a competitor, you know what you could do? You can highlight your other benefits, because what people don't often do enough, or companies I should say don't often do enough, is say, yes, okay, we don't pay as much as X company, but let me show you all of the benefits. And so when you start adding those benefits in, the work-life balance, the maybe you offer better insurance, you offer some flexible scheduling like we've talked about before, that really can put you over the edge. 48% of survey respondents say candidates expect remote work options, even if it's not listed in the job description. Y'all, we've talked about this. We have talked about this, and we have talked about this. You really need to address this in your job descriptions. If remote work is a possibility, tell them. If it is not a possibility, tell them. Why do you want to waste your time? Why do you want to waste the candidate's time? Why do you want to waste the hiring manager's time if you do have hiring managers? Just put it out there. Weed out those candidates immediately. There's one more I want to share with you. Oh, this one. 41% of candidates cite growth opportunities as a job factor. I actually am surprised it's that low. I would think it would be even higher than that. Maybe, I don't know about what y'all think, but I do believe that this is, especially with our younger folks that I speak with, this is a huge, huge area for them. They are also, again, as long as there are growth opportunities, as long as there are opportunities to learn, they're going to come on board.
Well, Trish, we did an episode last season where the stat was somewhere in the 75% range that people would leave a job if there weren't growth opportunities.
I think
So
it was even higher.
Yeah, but that's probably why
Yeah.
you're thinking it's higher. I think it's a little hard. I can understand why for a candidate it might be a little bit lower because it's a little harder to tell when you're interviewing for a job how how many growth opportunities there are.
That
But
makes sense.
yeah, the other thing that I would say that I was thinking about is when you were talking about, especially for those companies who can't offer the highest salary. Uh, if you can highlight your benefits and if you can put a monetary value on those, that can be really powerful. So, for example, we are on my husband's insurance through health insurance through his job. Well, the employer pays our premium 100%. So, if you add that up per month, there's a dollar amount to that, which is like an extra, like that's like money in our pocket because we don't have to pay that. So, even though his salary is lower, when you add that on, and then they also make a contribution to our HSA. So once you add that on, like by the time you do that, it's like, oh, you're actually making 20 grand more than what it looks like your salary says. So and I think that a lot of times employers discount that. Like they just say we offer health, medical, vision, dental, and they don't put a maybe they do a matching 401k, like there's dollar amounts attached to all of that that makes it really quantifiable. And that can be really helpful because it can change how people are viewing your position versus one that just pays more.
I share that
Tyler?
with my
Oh,
classes
sorry.
all the time. Oh, no, that's okay. I would just want to, before Kyler jumps in, I just want to say I share that with my classes all of the time, my HR generalist classes, and let them know I actually took a position where it looked like I was making, it wasn't 20,000, it was about 12 to $15,000 less a year. But in actuality, I was making more, and it was because of the exact same reason that you're talking about right now. And it was so incredibly important to me, and it made a huge difference.
You beat me to it, Julie, with the we call it like a total compensation breakdown. And you can include things like PTO too, because there's a monetary value to all of these things. A lot of people just see the number on their salary and like, that's it. I mean, personally at Bamboo, I've had people come in and offer me other roles that are a little bit more, and I'm like, ooh, maybe that's tempting. But one thing that we have is we have our total compensation breakdowns, which are awesome because it tells me, hey, here's my salary, but also here's the value of the benefits that I get compared to other places. Here's the value of my PTO. And I look at that combined with my salary, and I'm like, oh, well, that's actually even more than I thought. So it's a really important tool for recruitment and retention to be able to show someone, hey, we're investing in you more than just the number that you see on your paycheck every single month. There's a lot of other things that go into that. So it's not just how much do I see in my bank account when my direct deposit hits. It's okay, what are the other factors that go into it? So it's a really important thing to not only be transparent about, but almost use as a marketing pitch, especially if you are a company that maybe doesn't offer as much as some of your competitors or people in your space.
Julie, is that our drop the mic moment? I'm pretty sure it is. Sorry, Kyler, we have one of those at every episode, and you just got the award.
Your guest host is a success.
Yes, yes.
Perfect.
Um, can we talk about adaptability, y'all?
The touchy subject,
I,
but
I
yes.
don't. I mean, I don't want to start it, but I want to talk about it.
I'll start it.
Thank
So, I
you.
mean, we have not shied away from this. There's companies have to be intentional. I'm going to use the word Tyler used earlier. Very intentional about their culture nowadays and how they define that culture and the words they use and um, what they are trying to accomplish. So, first, I think companies need to get really, really clear on what they are trying to accomplish with their culture and what that means to them. And yes, we are talking about the political firestorm around the three little letters DEI. We are going to continue to say the words. So, again, we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and of course, belonging, and all the other things that we talk about. But there's some really interesting statistics in this Bamboo article about how companies have adapted their approach. And I'm assuming that the companies that responded to this were allowed to answer multiple questions because the percentages don't add up to 100. They go over 100. So obviously there's something. I'm assuming they were allowed to answer multiple questions, but 50% have said that their approach to DEI has changed since the Trump administration took office. 50% have deprioritized DEI. 45% said their approach hasn't changed, but they no longer use the term DEI. 30% said their approach hadn't changed at all. And 30% said we've changed other aspects of our program. So you can see it's very varied what the responses are. And a lot of that is going to be, I mean, let's be realist here. A lot of that is going to depend on what your company does, who your customer base is, who your employees are, and how strongly they feel about these particular sorts of issues. And, what your company mission and values have been from the start. And so we're not saying there's any right or wrong answer. But you do need to be able to be adaptable when these sorts of firestorms present themselves. And they can present challenges because if you, as a company, and because we're focusing on candidates and also along with that, as we've been talking about retention, you need to really give some thought to how are your employees going to see your actions as a company? How are they going to read that? Does it line up with your values and your mission and your core values, which we talk about all the time? And if it is inconsistent, employees are going to start to respond to that, and you're probably going to lose some, you know? And you may lose some employees because you take a strong stance. And, sometimes there's nothing that can be done about that. But you as a company have to decide what your risk tolerance is for taking a really strong stance, trying to, reach somewhere in the middle, or, exactly how you're going to handle that. And I think that's going to be unique for every company. And I'm not saying it's easy. So I don't want anybody to think that, I have the luxury of being the owner of my own companies. I can pretty much say whatever the hell I want. I mean, I might, I don't think I think most of my clients know where I stand, so I don't think it's going to be any big surprise because I'm pretty vocal about it. But it doesn't mean I can't understand if a client were to come to me and say, this is hard for us because our customer base is X, or our employees come from this sort of, background and tend to think a particular way. It's definitely not an easy topic to navigate, but you do have to have some flexibility and the ability to adapt to ways that are going to allow your company to survive, but also make sure that you can still respect and value and show that you value your employees, and that they have a safe space. So for us, for your employees, that's always the biggest thing. We want them to feel that they have a safe space to come to at work, no matter what their background is, no matter what their political persuasion is, no matter what if they fall into a protected class or not, no matter what their experiences have been, we want them to feel like they have a safe place to come to work. So that's one of the things to think about if you do feel that you need to change or adapt your strategy as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion goes. Think about, again, the message you're sending to your employees, and are you still creating that safe space for them? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyler for his thoughts.
Absolutely. Um, Firstly, when it comes to culture, be authentic is my biggest thing. That's one of the things I like about Bamboo is they are true to their culture. So when you're going and creating kind of the pillars and the centerpieces of what your company culture is going to be, make it attainable and sustainable. It has to be things that you can actually achieve. Obviously, it's great to have lofty goals for what your culture is, but if you can't achieve those, it looks a lot worse on you guys. So keep them within reach. They can be high up and high attainment goals, but make it something that ultimately, at the end of the day, it's doable. And then DEI is like the walking on eggshells topic of today. Um, the thing I always advise people to do is just try to remove as much bias from recruitment, onboarding, treatment, everything with your employees. And for some people, it's easier said than done, but a lot of people don't even know about their inherent biases that they have. So when you write a job description or you're looking for roles, take a moment to understand what you're putting out there and take a moment to evaluate, bring in a second opinion and understand, hey, does the way I've written this have any bias towards a specific demographic or against a protected class or anything like that? And try to remove as many of those biases as you can. And I think you'll see the quality, the talent, and the overall culture all increase at once. It's a really unique kind of situation, but make sure that you're being inclusive. I always make the joke. I'm triracial, so I'm Japanese, white, and black. I came out looking kind of Hispanic, and I do speak Spanish, so it's kind of a weird look. I used to always make the joke that when I submit a job application, people are salivating because they're like, "Oh my God, he's triracial. He satisfies everything. We're getting like 2 for 1." But joking aside, just take a moment to evaluate everybody fairly. Don't let your own personal biases, your own opinions influence that, because if you do, you may miss out on somebody who could be a really awesome fit, bring a lot of value to the culture, the business, everything that you guys do. So biggest thing is remove bias, be authentic with what you do, and good things will follow.
Kyler, I absolutely love what you just said. And it goes back to something that I try to talk about in my classes all the time, which is, everybody focuses on, and I think the I don't want to say downfall, but when DE and I really started to be demonized was post that case, with the Harvard case, as everybody calls it. And I think it's because people really confuse the idea of affirmative action with diversity, equity, inclusion, and they forget that they are completely two different things. When we're and the whole idea of Harvard and the idea of affirmative action, they won on a 14th Amendment, right? It was a 14th Amendment argument. It had nothing to do with the Civil Rights Act and everything that we're talking about when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. We are talking about treating people fairly, and we always have been. And it doesn't matter what color you are, what race you are, what gender you are, if you have a disability, if you're a man or if you're a woman, what your socioeconomic status is. It has nothing to do with trying to prefer one class over another or one group over another. It's about making everyone feel welcome. Everyone can bring and be their true, authentic selves when they come to work. Now, look, I'm not saying bring your drama, because I don't want your drama in my workplace. But when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, we're talking about making a place a safe space where everybody is welcome. And truly and honestly, when everybody says, well, what's wrong with focusing on merit? Absolutely nothing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with focusing on merit. But if we actually focused on merit, then we wouldn't have such a thing as equal pay day. I wouldn't have to work as a woman until almost the end of March to make what a man makes in the previous year. So don't tell me that there is such a thing as merit. There isn't. And that number gets worse when the equal pay day numbers, they get worse when we start adding in things like religion and race and color. And so I think that is one of my, as you guys can probably tell, it's something I'm very passionate about, right? I'm very, very passionate about it, which is why I wanted Julie and Kyler to start it off before I jumped in. It's something that I teach consistently. It's something that I've always been very vocal about. And so I just want to say, I understand all of you who are scared. I understand all of you who are worried about what is going on out there. And I'm not telling you to not follow the law. I'm just saying to you, you know what? If you were doing what these programs were intended to do in the first place, then you're already following the law, and there's nothing to worry about. And if you have a value, if you have a belief, if you have something that your company stands on, then stand on it.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
going to drop my own mic.
yes, mic drop. Well, and on that note, I just wanted to say, one of the things that I think could be helpful for companies if they are feeling that they need to potentially adapt how they talk about their programs, including DEI programs, is to go back to the core values and define them. So it's so easy to say our core values are respect, integrity, and loyalty, or just for example, without ever defining what those words mean. And I'll give you an example that I may have shared on a prior episode, but I was doing an employee mediation with a team of people who were unable to communicate, like had not spoken to each other, even though they all worked in the same hallway in over a year because they couldn't communicate without things just going sideways. So I'm working with them, and they are all telling me the same thing. What do you want your workplace to look like? I want there to be respect, professionalism, and camaraderie. Okay. Next person, same thing. Next person, same thing. I finally said, okay, how do you define respect? How do you define respect? Oh, this is where we figured out they don't define it the same way. So they're all
I
wanting,
shared this, Julie. I
yes,
stole this from you, and I share it with all my classes.
yeah, they're all saying they want the same things, but they mean very different things by it. And I think that, we've talked about this on another episode, but I do think we've shortened it down to DEI and we've all forgotten what it stands for. So if you need to, in your company, go back and say, what does diversity mean to us? It can mean a lot of things. We talk about this all the time. We tend to think only about it in terms of protected classes, but it can mean a lot of things. It can mean diversity of experiences, diversity of backgrounds, diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds. It can mean diversity of education, diversity of the way we think, the way we problem solve, the way we communicate. There's all sorts of diversity. And so if you start branching it out into all those other things, it all of a sudden isn't this evil thing that that some people have made it out to be. Same with inclusion. If you really think about the term inclusion, it means that we are trying to create a space where everybody feels included. Oh my God, how horrible. Like
Hey, Julie, what's the opposite of inclusion?
exclusion.
And who wants exclusion?
Right, exactly. So I think that that's a useful exercise though, because it really makes you stop thinking of it in the way that it has been framed in our political sphere right now, and brings it back to what do we care about? Because in your company, that's what's important, is what you care about and what your employees care about and what your employees can sense that you care about. And so that's where you need the focus to be. And if you bring the focus back there and shut out all the rest of the noise, you'll find your way. That's my mic drop moment.
I have to do it again. Boom.
All right. Now,
All right.
yes, we have chattered on for a while now. So, I want to go to Kyler for first your thoughts on the wine you're drinking and whether you still are enjoying it, and then any final thoughts that you might have.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed mine. Mine is all gone up to this point. So I think I was going a little bit faster than the rest of the group leading the pack.
Wait, is just your glass gone or is the bottle gone?
We've gone through about a glass and a half. Not the bottle is not gone.
You're not ahead of us.
Okay, cool. All right.
We got no. You don't see what's happening off camera.
No.
We just keep refilling.
you're
We're
slick with it.
professionals.
I never even saw it happen, so it's like a magician, very sleight of hand. But no, I mean, I think everything we've talked about is really beneficial. Like at the end of the day, like I always say, we call it KISS, keep it simple, stupid, or any other synonym you want to put in the end. But don't overcomplicate things. It's really simple at its core, and then it gets more complicated the deeper you dive into everything. So take a very tailored, intentional approach to how you go about recruitment in every sense of the word, how you go about acquiring and recruiting. And if you're authentic and true to yourself and genuine with it, good people will usually follow. So be very intentional, be genuine, be authentic, but have some fun with it. Ultimately, you don't want a boring process that no one wants to go through. Like you guys have said, put yourself in the candidate's shoes, understand what they would want to go through in this instance, and I think you'll have a really great kind of recruitment strategy.
Kyler, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Awesome. So if our listeners want to explore Bamboo and all the, as we know, you offer amazing things. And we've just touched on just a couple of them today. And I promised everybody it wouldn't be salesy, but I have to say, like, what can they expect from Bamboo as a company should they reach out to you and are interested in partnering with you as well?
Yeah, I mean, you can expect great service, cheap jokes from me as well. But in all seriousness, kind of going off of what we went over today, I think there's a couple of things that if people are looking to improve their hiring that we can help with. One is just having a platform that centralizes communication, no matter where somebody applies from, whether it's your website, social media, a job board, it brings it into one place. So it makes it easy for you guys to see everybody in one place, collaborate, send offer letters, kind of moving through all the steps. And then we also have a lot of great onboarding tools. That's really one of our biggest areas of focus is onboarding. They have a great experience. And then as well as things like job descriptions and compensation, we have some great benchmarking tools. So you can search for a specific position in your industry, in your state, and use that to not only see what other people are putting in their job descriptions, but also what they're paying people. So you can make it competitive, you can make it exciting for people. And one of the things that I love is those compensation breakdowns I talked about. We'll have those in our system so you can show them to your employees and they can see, how much they're making in salary, benefits, PTO, equity, anything else. But there's a lot of other really cool things that BambooHR has to offer. So if it's something that excites you or might be a benefit, I'd be happy to chat to anybody more about it. That's kind of what I do. So I love it.
I'm obsessed with you all. What an amazing company. I'm so excited that we partner with you.
We have a cute panda mascot too, so something to look forward to. We call him Pudgy.
Is there anything cuter than a panda? Maybe a panda butt.
Wait, you call him Pudgy?
That's what he was named. That's what he was named.
That's adorable.
What? His name is Pudgy?
Pudgy the panda. That is our little mascot.
That's adorable.
I love it.
Well, and I just want to tell everybody that the reason that we decided to partner with Bamboo is because before I ever even knew they had partners, I had recommended Bamboo to several clients, and they have been so happy. And they've really enjoyed using it. The onboarding process as a client was great. And so I had already been recommending Bamboo all over the place. So then when they reached out to us and said, hey, we'd like to partner with you, we said, that's great. Because you know us, we're all about giving you guys tools and resources that are useful and impactful and can really help you in HR and as in your company. So that's why we decided to partner with them. Monarch does get a commission if you sign up, so I want to be upfront about that. But we chose to partner with Bamboo because we know their product and we know their service and we know that it's really great. And this article is one example of that, because they offer this sort of stuff free all the time, just these great resources with all this information and knowledge in it that is fantastic. So thank you, Kyler.
Thank you guys for having me.
And I think I think, Julie, one of the things that I have been so impressed with once you introduced me more was the fact that it's not just big companies small companies can benefit. And there are very few companies out there, I think, that actually can do that can fit a space where, oh, hey, we can work with small companies, we can work with big companies, we can work with anyone. And so that's one of the things that I think I'm so impressed with, is the fact that, some of our listeners out there might be like, oh, well, we're too small. No, you're not. No, they're amazing and they'll work with you. So check them out.
Yeah, and we will have all the links in our show notes, of course. And you can also just email us at whine@monarchendeavorsllc.com and we'll get you in touch. So Trisha, how's your wine?
Okay, so I'm loving this. My first couple of sips, I wasn't so sure. It was like hitting me weird on my tongue, but the more I drink it, the more I love it. I think that this is gonna go into my repeat cycle. What about you, Jules?
So I like it more, but
Okay.
I can't say it's going on my repeat list. Let's just say that. So here's the thing. Wine palettes are so varied. So it doesn't mean it's a bad wine. It just means it's not for me. So somebody else might really, really, really enjoy it. It's a little fruity for my taste. And again, even though it says it's dry, to me it tastes sweet. So I don't know exactly what that is, but on a hot summer day, yeah, it's probably pretty nice. I think it would pair really well with fruit-based things. So like a salad that has strawberries and feta, or watermelon and feta, or something like that. It would probably be
That sounds good.
really, really nice with. Hey, I finally had one where I didn't, just say I love it by the end. So my final thought before we go is, Kyler said, keep it simple, stupid. And so I told this story to people earlier today, but all of you who have listened to me or been in one of my trainings have heard me say my life's motto. And here I found a sign.
We bring it closer so they can see that the live, laugh, love is crossed out.
Oh my God, I can't believe I found this. But here's the thing. If you follow this, you're going to be good. Don't be a dick to your candidates. Don't be a dick to your employees. Don't be a dick to your customers. You're good.
Ta-da! I always sanitize it. By the way, Kyler, you will laugh. I always tell people, I go, now my business partner, she says, don't be a Richard. You know what that means. So I'm going to tell you, don't be a jerk. Yeah. You get it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us, Kyler. Thank you, Winos, for indulging us in this episode. We'll put all the good stuff in the show notes, including our links to BambooHR if you want to see a demo, test it out, get a free trial, whatever the case may be. We'll put you in touch with Kyler. And
don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, thank you, Trisha. So thank you all. We love you. Cheers.
Cheers.